Okay, we are holding. Good morning, everybody. We are holding in the Chitas. We're holding today is Thursday. We're holding in the fifth reading of the Torah, getting closer to Matan Torah, to the actual giving of the Torah. Verse chapter 19, verse number 7. Moshe Rabbeinu came and he summoned the elders of the community. He summoned the elders of the community, and he put before them as all these words as Hachiva Hashem, which God commanded. Verse 8, Vayanu kolam vayachtav, and the entire people replied in unison and said, Vayemru kol asher diba Hashem, whatever God commanded, whatever God spoke, we shall do. Vayashem Moshe divrei el Hashem, and Moshe Rabbeinu returned the words of the Eibush that the Jewish people said, we will do. Nasa, we will do. So Rashi says, Vayashem Moshe, Vayem hamachas, and the next day, which was the third day, which he told the Jewish people that they should get ready for 3 days. He went up in the morning. The question is, did Moshe Rabbeinu have to bring it back to God? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu? The God didn't know what the Jewish people answered. He had to come back. Oh, the Jewish people answered. Oh, thank you. The Eibush knew exactly what the Jewish people answered. Rather, this comes to teach us a lesson. The next, rather, the text comes to teach us the derech eretz of Moshe, the etiquette of Moshe Rabbeinu, that he did not say, since he who sent me knows, I don't have to reply. The Eibush wanted a reply, so you respect and reply, even though that a person might know, or surely God knows. If somebody asks a question, you should reply and answer the question. Verse 9. So God said to Moshe, I'm going to come to you in the thick of the cloud. So God, the people will hear. It's not a private conversation. This is a public conversation. And also they'll believe in you forever. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rambam writes, is a different prophet than any other prophet, because he didn't come with any kind of proof, any kind of sign. Moshe Rabbeinu, everybody saw. Everybody saw who Moshe Rabbeinu was. There was no secret. There was not something that they heard or they had to see some kind of miracle. They saw it. Vayagid Moshe divrei el Hashem, and Moshe Rabbeinu reported what the Jewish people said. Not only in the thickness of the cloud. Not only in you, but Moshe Rabbeinu, God says, but also in they're all going to be in just like they'll believe in you, they'll ultimately believe in the prophets that'll come after that. Vayagid Moshe b'yom hamachas, and the next day, on the fourth day, l'chodesh, that was the third day of the month. As divrei shuva al davar sheshmaiti, namely in response to the statement I've heard from them, the Israelites, that they wanted to hear directly from you. They maintain that there's no comparison between one who hears a message from the mouth of the messenger and one who hears it from the mouth of the king himself. They said, we want to see God. So we might believe in Moshe Rabbeinu, but why listen to through a second hand? We want to hear it from God himself. So he said the Eibush agreed. Verse 10. He said, so God said, okay, you want to hear it from me? I accept it. Go to the people, tell them prepare today and tomorrow, and they shall wash their garments. Go to the mikveh. If it's true that they compel me to speak to them, every Jew wants to hear God himself. So then you have to go and prepare them. They prepare themselves today and tomorrow, and they go to the mikveh. They come pure. They purify themselves. Verse 11, should be ready for the third day. Because on the third day, God's going to come down on the mountain. Rashi, when you separate yourself, they shouldn't have any relationship because that brings impurity, and because of the concept of this relationship brings about a seminal discharge, which is the concept of tumah, which you have to go to the mikveh. Not the concept of tumah of death; it's a concept of a certain level of tumah. So Rashi said, the third day, which is the 6th day of the month. It's all started on the 1st of the month. And on the 5th of the month, Moses built the altar on the roof, foot of the mountain, and on the 12 monuments. And the entire people stayed, and the entire episode is stated in the section of Elam Mishpatim. But there's no sequence on the earlier, later incidents of the Torah. So this happened, this is all moving up to the 6th day of the month. So this teaches us that the eyes of the entire Jewish people. That teaches that everybody saw. That means that if somebody was blind, he was healed and he started to see. Verse 12. Do not go on the mountain. To make sure to put some kind of boundary, some kind of a rope, and some kind of sign that they would not go on the mountain. But the gay would take on there, Bahar Meister, because whoever touches the mountain will die. He set boundaries for them as a sign they should know not to come near to the mountain boundary. So he told them, be careful, tell them, beware of going up from here on. You shall warn them about it. You always have to warn somebody. And the gay even the edge of it, a person should not touch. Verse 13, you shall not touch it, for he shall be stoned or cast down. In Behemim ish, whether it's a man or animal, he will not live in Sheikh HaYevel. The ram's horn sounds. Hema Yala Bahar, drawn by out a blast, they shall ascend the mountain. What does that mean? So Rashi says, Yeda, Mikan, from here we learn a general different law, that the law, when you in the law of stoning somebody, in Jewish law, when somebody did a certain Aveda, he was stoned, that first he was thrown down from a very high place, and then he was stoned. So Yeda is to be thrown. The Meshech HaYevel, when the ram's horn sound long, drawn blast, this is a sign that the Shekhinah withdrawal and the cessation of God's verse. As soon as the Shekhinah withdraws, the second they hear the sound of the blast, they are permitted to send the mountain. That's the meaning of the verse. HaYevel is shofar shalayel. The Yevel horn was the shofar of a ram. Shekaim ba'avir ken l'dachi yevla, because in Arabic they call a ram yovla. And this is the shofar was from Isaac's ram, the ram that Abraham sacrificed instead of Isaac. And that was the ram's horn that's connected to the story of Isaac. This ram's horn is connected to Matan Torah. And this ram's horn is connected to every Rosh Hashanah. And this ram's horn is going to be the sound that's going to announce the coming of Mashiach. Verse 14.
Yippee!
That was to wake you up.
Yeah.
Moshe ascended the mountain. Descended the mountain. I'm sorry. Elam to the nation. And he told them to prepare. They shall wash their garments. So that she says, that teaches us that Moshe Rabbeinu was focused. He didn't come down the mountain and go home and start taking care of his private things. He went straight from the mountain to the people, back to the mountain, back to the people. He was focused in his mission. The mission was to bring the Torah to the Eden in the best and pristine way. Verse 15. He told the people, in the Chayim get prepared. You have 3 days to prepare yourself. Do not have any relationships in these 3 days. For the end of 3 days. For on the 4th day, for Moshe added a day on his own volition. This is the view of the Rabbi Yossi, who said the Torah was given on the 7 days. The whole machlekes in the Gemara, when was the Torah given? On the 6th day or the 7th day? The whole argument. So the question is, the Torah really sounds like it's going to be 6 days, 6 days. But Moshe Rabbeinu suddenly added on his own another day. According to others, say the 10 Commandments were given on the 6th day of the month. However, Moshe did not add anything. And the 3 days had the same meaning as the 3rd day, as God said on the 3rd day. So the question is, what's the 3rd day? The 3rd day from when God said the 3 day would be on the 6th of the month, or the 3rd day when Moshe Rabbeinu came down and said, you have 3 days. So they added another day. Al tikshal isha, do not have intimacy with her for all these 3 days of preparation, in order that a woman may immerse herself. See, this was not only for the men, but this was for women to go to the mikveh. That a woman to immerse herself in the 3rd day and pure to receive a Torah. So they also went to the men went to the mikveh, the women went to the mikveh. If they had intercourse within the 3 days, the woman could omit semen after immersion and become unclean again if it came out from her. So after 3 days had elapsed since intercourse, however, the semen has already become putrid and is no longer capable of fertilization. So it's pure from containing the contaminated woman if it would omit from her. So therefore, these 3 days were for women, that they would be able to go to the mikveh. It was more for the women than for the men, that they would be able to go to the mikveh on the 3rd day at night, and they would be able to be pure and ready for Matan Torah. So here we see the men and the women went to the mikveh before the giving of the Torah. And it was on the 3rd day, the morning of the 3rd day. Again, it was a question again in the Gemara, is the 3rd day, is the 6th day of the month, or was the 7th day of the month? So it was early in the morning. It was great lightning and flashes and claps of thunder. It was a sound of the shofar blast strong. Yeah, it was so powerful. And the nation shuddered in the camp. This teaches us that he preceded them on the mountains on Mount Sinai, which is unconventional for a man of flesh and blood. Having a teacher wait for the pupil. The Eibishter came first. The Medrash says actually the Jewish people were sleeping. That's why this was the first alarm clock. They woke up, they were in shock. There's a whole story of why they went to sleep the night before the giving of the Torah. Why would they go to sleep? But that's a separate issue. But the Eibishter woke them up. The Eibishter God himself came first, which is not usual. It's really the opposite way. First the pupils, the students come, then the teacher comes. But here God came first. This is a rise and go out to the plain. And I arose and went out to the plain, and behold, the glory of the Lord was standing. The Eibishter was standing there. So God always says the expression in the Talmud, Ani Amaschel. If I ask somebody to do something, Ani Amaschel, I'm there first. Verse 17. Moshe brought the people before God, towards God. I'm sorry, Menamachta for the camp. They stood underneath the mountain. To bring them to God. The expression tells us that the Shekhinah came out towards them like a bridegroom coming out towards his bride. This is the meaning who states the Lord came to Sinai, and it doesn't say came from Sinai. I'm sorry, it doesn't say came to Sinai, because actually the Eibishter came down the mountain towards the Jewish nation, like a chassan goes towards his bride. That's why the chassan goes toward the bride under the chuppah. He walks towards the bride. Some have a tradition they walk. Actually, the chassan walks all the way to the bride. Tachta sahar. So now she says, the simple meaning in the bottom of the mountain. Medrashe. The Medrash says, however, that the mountain was uprooted from its place, and it was turned over them like a vat. Eibishter put them all under the mountain. The famous Medrash, he put the mountain upon them. He said, accept the Torah or I'll just drop the mountain. Har Sinai, in the mountain of Sinai, Oshan was totally a smoke. Hashem, Olav, Hashem, the Eibishter came upon it. The Eish and a fire. and the smoke went up like a kiln. I'm sorry. Vayechad kol ha'ama ha'moed, and the entire mountain quaked violently. So Ashan, okay, the Ashan is the next Ashan is a grammar. Ashan, the mountain, Kivshan shall sid, like a lime used for baking of lime. I would think it would mean the mountainside is smoked like a kiln, and no more. Therefore, clarify the scripture states the mountain was blazing with fire up to the heart of the heavens. Meaning the fire was so far greater than the lime than in a lime kiln. Why does the Torah say kiln? In order to explain to a human ear what is able to hear, to give the reader a picture that he can imagine. He gives the humans a sign similar to them. He tells them, look at a kiln. Similar to this description of God wrestling, he shall roar like a lion, whose but gave him strength like a lion. David is not a lion. The Torah wants to give us an example. You see a lion roar. Who's not afraid of the lion roar? If the scripture compares him to a lion, but we describe and compare him to a creature in order to explain to humans what the ear is able to hear. Similar to this, the sound of the voice of God was the sound of abundant waters. Now, who gave the water a sound? But he. Yet you describe him and compare him to a creature in order to explain to a human what his ear is able to hear. So if you want to imagine what means a fire, look at a kiln. Where the kiln is burning, you'll see the fire erupting through the mouth of the kiln. You'll understand you'll have an imagination of what the Mount Sinai looked like when it was ablaze, like a kiln. Verse 19. And there was a sound of shofar grew increasingly stronger. And there was nobody blowing the shofar, my friends. This was something that was blowing for itself. Moshe would speak and God would answer him with a voice. So Rashi says it's customary for mortals that the longer one blows long notes on a horn, I can vouch for this, the weaker the fainter the sound becomes. It's hard to blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. As you're blowing, it gets weaker and weaker. Here, however, it constantly grew stronger. Now, why would the beginning was so weak sound? In order that the ears would hear and they'll be able to hear. So it slowly got stronger and stronger. It started off weaker. This expression the Talmud says, "Mikala lakovid," from the easy to the hard. Moshe Yadaber, when Moshe would speak and make the dialogue heard to Israel, for they heard from the mouth of God, "I am, and you shall have." Ultimately, the Jewish people wanted to hear from God, but they couldn't handle it. As the Medrash said, God said the first commandment, they all died, and he had to revive them. And it says the second command, they all died, and he had to revive them. And then they said, no. They asked Moshe Rabbeinu that he should say, and they would hear it. He would say it to Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Yidden would hear it from Moshe Rabbeinu. So that's what happened. So we know that only the first two commandments were heard by the entire Jewish nation. I am God, your God, and you shall not have any other gods. Were heard from the Jews. Every Jew and every soul, all of us that was there, we were all there. All our souls were there. We all heard it. And then the other 612 and 11 commandments, and the other 8 commandments on Mount Sinai were heard from Moshe Rabbeinu. And then in Bakel, and al Dvar, meaning he would answer him concerning the voice and not the voice big coil with a voice similar to Be'esh. It says that Yanan big coil would answer him concerning the voice. You ask the question and God will respond. And that ends the Chumash of the day. Tomorrow, on Friday, we're going to do the 10 Commandments. And now we go to the Tanya of the day. Today, the Alter Rebbe continues in the aspect of the service of a Beinoni. So the Rebbe is talking about the aspect of sadness. as we mentioned, that there's a place for sadness, and in Torah, and there's a time for it. So, but generally, a person has to be besimcha. And the Alter Rebbe is now going into a situation. When you have, this is chapter 26, the middle of chapter 26. As for sadness connected with heavenly matters, because there is, when a person is really sad, that he's disconnected from God, or it is sins that he's done, and it's a real aspect of sadness. So what do you do with that sadness? We're not talking about sadness that he's not rich, or that he's suffering from this or from that, ailments or troubles. Whatever a person is really sad that he's not a perfect kind of Jew. So you have to find ways to free yourself from it. You gotta figure out how to get free yourself from this sadness. Surely you shouldn't have this worries of your spiritual negativity in the time of your service of God. That in those times you need to serve God with happiness. But even when a person's in his business, if it falls, even let's say something in the middle of work or in the middle of my day, and suddenly I feel depressed because I'm not a perfect person. I feel bad, whether I'm not a perfect person right now or I'm not a perfect person in the past. I'm just not a good person. I know it. I look in the mirror, my own reflection. I know who I am, and I know. So now it's hard for me. I'm having a bad day. So the Alter Rebbe says you should know, be a dua. You should know that this sadness is not coming from any place good. You should know this is the trick of your evil inclination. Your evil inclination not only doesn't want you to serve God, it doesn't want you to even have a good day. Here you're not serving God. You're not in shul. You're doing a job. And suddenly you're starting to feel depressed of I'm starting to feel depressed of my lack of holiness. Why suddenly are you starting to feel depressed now? Why would you Yetzer Hara not say, good, you're not davening, you're not learning, you're sitting and working, you're relaxing, whatever you're doing, and suddenly now, in order to lure him afterwards into lust. Yetzer Hara, why would he do that? Why did Yetzer Hara stop you from a regular day? Because he's trying to get you. He's trying to tell you, since you're bad, let's be bad anyway. You're not so perfect, so let's be more imperfect. Right? Don't think you're such a holy guy. You're not so holy. So therefore, who cares if you do unholiness? If not so, Alter Rebbe says, you don't say. Why would if this is coming from your godly soul, why would your godly soul do this while you're in the middle of your day's work? He would do this when you're serving God. Why would God do this in the middle of your day's work? You're not serving the Eibishter. You're relaxing, or you're working, or whatever you're doing. Why would this depression come now? It would never come now if it's for the service of God. It's it's my Yetzer Hara. It's my evil inclination who's coming to drag me more down. So I got to realize that. And I got to realize it's a real thing. Because the Yetzer Hara is true. He's right that I'm not so perfect. So it's not even a lie. It's a true statement. But there's a time for it. There's a time for this issue. That's why we asked, the Alter Rebbe is going to tell you the time. But there is a time to work on. Yes, maybe I'm not so perfect right now. Maybe I wasn't so perfect in the past. It's true. We all have sins. We all know our negative situations. So it doesn't make a difference if this depression settles upon him during davening or learning, or whether or whether it falls into while he's doing material things, while he's working, or he's doing day-to-day mundane things. Suddenly, he gets an anxiety attack. This is what he should say. Ki ein hazman gedorim. He should say to his Yetzer Hara, you know what? Now is not the right time. You're right. I got a problem. I'm not going to argue. There's what to be depressed on. But you know what? Not now. Let's push it off. I'm going to make a special time where I'm going to sit down and work on this issue. This is what you should tell yourself. Now is not the proper time for genuine sadness. Not even to worry about real bad sins. It's not the time. You know what? I'm going to make a special time. I need to make an opportune time. I'm going to make an opportune time. I need to make an opportune time. When I have my mind is calm, that I can deal with these issues. To think about the greatness of God, that I sinned to him. So I'm going to put time, and that time, make a time. At night, everything's calm, sit in my room, think about what I've done to God. Think about the negatives that I've done. Think about my sins. Cry over it a little bit. Because then I can fix it. If it comes in the middle of the day, it's just trying to distract me. It's just trying to pull me down. Here I'm going to make a time. And a Jew should make a time. And to sit down and think about his negative things. Because then it's real. Because then if he makes a time, he'll be able to he's able to be rent in genuine bitterness. Bitter remorse, as opposed to depression. That's a difference. The Alter Rebbe was against depression. It was a concept. But he was for remorse, because everybody needs to be remorseful. We say every day, we bag ourselves, we're remorseful. It's real. We have done sins. So therefore, we need to be remorseful, not depressed, remorseful, and that's a big difference. So I need to make time to sit down and to be remorseful, to do tshuva. As explained elsewhere, when it should be that time. That's why tzaddikim would do it on Chatzos. But make a time. Make the time. As I mentioned by tzaddikim, the Alter Rebbe says, just like we had tzaddikim, as I said before, that he did tikkun chatzos. He would sit down at midnight. He would cry over the destruction of the temple, over the sadness of the Jewish people, and then he would get up and be happy, because there's a time. So too, you need to make sure that the time that I make doesn't drag on forever. There's a time. Sit down. I'm remorseful. And then I get up and say, now I got to be happy. Because you have perfect faith. The Eibusher has taken away his sins. And God has an abundance of God forgives abundantly. So the Alter Rebbe says, so even the time that I make, I need to make sure that what comes from the sadness that I'm going to put aside and have that time to be sad, really, and to have bitterness. Really not sad. I'm using the wrong word of bitterness, because again, sad is not a good thing. Sad comes from depression. Bitterness, remorsefulness, it brings about something positive, and that's what we're looking for. That it brings about something positive. We're more focused, because the bitterness, because the sadness only brings more sadness. Depression brings more depression. Bitterness, the kind of merirus, frustration, brings out a result, demands a response. And what's the response? Simcha. The response is simcha. V'zeh simcha amitis, ba'avaya. And this will bring out a great joy, which comes after this sadness. Kiniskel El, as I mentioned before. It's very important. So the Alter Rebbe says he's not running away from the truth that people can be depressed and they can be depressed over serious issues that have gone through in life in the past, or serious issues they're going through now. That they're not such perfect people. We're all, as Alter Rebbe says, the Gemara says, every person does a sin of not learning Torah every day. So we should be bitter about that. We should have bitterness about that. But it needs to be done in the right time and in the right situation. Because if I do it while I'm working or while I'm praying, that's not the right time. That's not the right time. So the right time is where I can sit down and think about it truly, and I can have bitterness of what I've done and realize what I've done to God, feel remorseful, ask God forgiveness truly, because I'm focused on this issue, and then accept that God forgives me, be happy, and go on. And that's the way it needs to be done. My friends, today is a special day. It's the Yortzeit of Rabbanis Tzkanis Chaya Mushka, the Rebbe's wife and the Fidik Rebbe's daughter. Today is the Yortzeit, I think, our 33rd Yortzeit. So a neshama should be an ambassador of goodness and kindness for everybody, and for Klal Yisrael. And today the Tillim of the day is chapter 106 and 107, I believe. Those are the two chapters. Right? Correct. It's 106 and 107. If you do those two chapters, you've done the chitas of the day. And in Mit Shem tonight, we're having a beautiful, starting a JLI course at 7:30, the Journey of the Soul. That I hope you all will be there tonight. It's a phenomenal class. Old Tanya is based on the soul, the journey of the soul. So this is actually based on the Tanya. And God bless you all. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow, the 6th day of the week, which is going to be the 10 Commandments in Mit Shem tomorrow for Chitas, the 10 Commandments. God bless you all. See you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Have a good day.
God willing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.